And a very good evening to everybody, and welcome to one of our Spiritualism Lyceum nights. This week we have the lovely Ewan Irvine talking to us from near Edinburgh. Ewan, good evening to you, sir.
Hello, I like the lovely part.
You are lovely. I love your
Thank you.
post. I love your post about your wee doggy. I think that's wonderful.
Yes, he's sitting there at the moment, quite patient, just wondering where his next meal or next biscuit's coming from.
It's so wonderful of you, and thank you so much for giving your time so freely.
Pleasure.
Yet again. So the topic of tonight's conversation is about philosophy within spiritualism. Those of you that know me know I'm quite a passionate exponent of the philosophy side. I'm not decrying the mediumship. Those messages are very, very important and can bring a great deal of relief, peace, and upliftment. But to me, the real sort of bread and butter, the real depth of spiritualism is in the various philosophies that are given by Spirit. And they're not bound to one creed or denomination. They are observations and encouragements and pointers for us to actually live this life at this time. What's your thoughts there, please, Ewan?
Yeah, the philosophy, I think we can all take a little bit from the philosophy and find that when a medium is giving the philosophy at a church or a centre, there's always that little bit that folk can take, that little bit for themselves. And the fact that, that it's very much brought through from Spirit, again shows how it, how it reaches out to people, how it's meant for them. And that's what I love about philosophy and hearing it, because it's so much part of what we do. We always think, well, there's the mediumship, and it's almost at times that we kind of put the philosophy and the healing a bit into like second place, when it's not. It's all equal. It's all part of what we do.
Very much. I agree 100% there. Are we having a little burglar moment over there, are we?
I think he's heard a noise at the front door and he just likes to go and investigate, scare them away.
Good dog. Yes, I very much agree that sometimes the other sides of spiritualism are put to one side in favour of mediumship. But then when we are working in that philosophical realm, that is also mediumship. I mean,
yeah.
I love it when I'm giving an address and I say something, because I'm semi there, semi not when I'm working on the address. But something will be said and my mind will go, oh, that's interesting. And I love those little moments, because if my mind is saying that's interesting, then where's it come from?
Exactly.
You know?
And what I always find as well, and 9 times out of 10 in the churches and the centres, how the music, the hymns, the reading, the philosophy all ties in, and very much a lot of the mediumship has wee elements, when they've come through, and there's wee elements that run right through a particular word, will run right through the service as well. But how it all fits together, it never ceases to amaze me.
I know. I've been having great fun here with the Sunday morning services on Zoom. There's a lovely couple who are looking after the music for me, and they've come back every week saying, how do you keep doing that? How do you pick the right song to go with the reading and the address? I'm not. Not me.
It's all kind of thought out upstairs, so to speak. And because I always go back to, many years ago and starting to go onto the road of mediumship, and of course you had to give the talk or philosophy, and it's something I think that kind of stumps a lot of us to begin with. And I used to, it was in the days when, starting out and you would give a message And then you would say, okay, do you want to give another message? You would say, oh, no, I only do one. No, I don't do a second message. No. And it was kind of the same with philosophy. No. And what I used to do was in my suit pocket, I used to keep a wee poem or something. And I always, it was like my backup. It was my emergency. If nothing was coming or I couldn't think what to speak about, I'd maybe just go for the poem. And then I quickly discovered I didn't need it because there was always something that was given, or something that Spirit would give, or something from the reading that I could talk about. So over time, I realised, I suppose, it was just really putting the trust in Spirit.
Yes. Yeah, I agree 100. And I did chuckle there. No, you only do one message.
Only two.
I did one message. It nearly worked, so I'm happy.
Yeah.
But it's so true. You can pick up, the more you trust, the more is given to you. And with my love with this philosophy, I as you gathered, I've got a bit of a humour here. And my humour I use when I'm working with my spirit friends as well. And I attended one of the local fledgling nights, and I thought, right, I'm going to do. Everybody else is doing mediumship. That's fine, but I just want to do philosophy. And I'm going there, and I'm thinking, I've got nothing. Give me something. Give me something. Give me. God, I've got nothing. Just as we were going to go into the church, I kicked something in the doorway, and it was an empty pot of muller rice. And I picked it up and I just looked at the ingredients, and I always remember this because it actually, the ingredient said rice was something like 6%. And I thought, well, that's a bit disappointing.
Yes.
Rice pudding, and it's only 6% of it rice. What's the other 94?
Yeah, exactly.
But that actually spurred my talk, and from that, all this came through, and I was just sat there thinking, okay, it's working. But it's beautiful. And when you do get that philosophy that resonates with you, and that's quite an important part, because there are many schools of philosophy within Spirit. We're going to hear some addresses and just think, not sure, doesn't resonate with me. But then you'll hear others and you'll go, wow, do you know what, actually? And I've had it, people have said, do you know what? I came here with a question today and it was answered in the address.
Yep.
Yeah.
And again, it's almost as if it's all orchestrated by upstairs, by Spirit upstairs have somehow done that. And I think as well, and it's a thing we're missing at the moment, is the churches and centres not really being open, is the amount of people that come along and they'll say, I never got a message, but while I was sitting there and the philosophy and hearing that, and I just went away feeling a little bit better.
Yeah, I agree. It's very interesting at this time that we are seeing such an upsurge in people looking into spiritualism and spirituality and various different things. It's been reflected through history, because after both the world wars, spiritualism had massive resurgences, where there would be Lyceum nights, say at the Royal Albert Hall, and the place would be packed. But the mediumship demonstrated on those nights wasn't the communication evidence that we've gotten so reliant or dependent upon these days, but it was pure philosophy. And I just think, how wonderful is that? Because not only were that amount, you take it, the Albert Hall, how many people are in there?
Exactly, yep.
And they've come to hear spirit philosophy. They haven't gone there thinking, oh, I hope so-and-so comes through. They've gone there to find out, because when we are challenged, during the wars and at this time with so much loss about, people are looking at, what is life? What is my connection with God? What is?
And I think the reasons as well, because certainly, during the war, there was so many folk that were killed and never had the chance to say goodbye. And folk that just never came home, so there was no closure, nothing like that. And folk were looking for that proof, that evidence, that closure, that chance to say goodbye. And we can see a little bit of that happening at the moment as well, unfortunately. But I do wonder as time goes on that people are looking more within themselves, I think, and looking a little bit more spirituality at themselves. And I always remember, and again, I've mentioned this in actual philosophy, but someone once said, "What does spiritualism mean?" Or and folks said, "Well, it's spirit, it's spiritual." And they said, "What about the wee ism on the end, spiritualism? What's the wee ism?" And everyone's looking, the ism? Yeah, the ism, the ISM. Break it down. Inside me. Spiritual inside me. Spiritualism.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking about that, and it kind of hit me, and I thought, yes, that's exactly what it was. And I have used that within philosophy and perhaps things that have happened and also where everything's just come straight from spirit. It's I don't know, if I just say it's weird and wonderful how it all happens. And sometimes it's hard to explain it in full.
Indeed.
It just
Indeed. One of the hardest things, isn't it, when we have our people asking, okay, what's it about? It's quite difficult to explain the whole because it's something you experience. It's not something we've sat there and learned. We've not sat down and taken tests, written out dates and memorized people. It's a lifetime of experience, but to try and explain that to people, it can sometimes leave you a little bit tongue-tied. I mean, the actual word philosophy goes way, way, way back in time, even BC. In ancient Greece, there was a gentleman called Pindar, and he put forward this idea that the soul resides temporarily as a guest in the home of the body and then returns to its source. So that's like, okay, that sounds like spiritualism to me.
Yeah, and these thousands of years later, science is starting to come round to that as well. Again, that the consciousness, it's not the body that creates the consciousness, but consciousness uses the body.
Yeah.
And starting to come round. And I love that. The fact that for so long, science and everybody on the side of spiritualism and alternative things were kind of a wee bit loggerheads. It was a no man's land in between. And we didn't come out onto it. But now kind of starting to play a little bit of kind of football in between, a little bit of batting the ideas about and perhaps starting to come together. And we can see that now that they're starting to look at this and that, science is saying, actually, there might just be something to it. There might just be something else out there. And I think that's very interesting. I think that's great.
It is, definitely. Our nights and our involvement with the Spiritist fraternity. My first introduction to Spiritism was a few years ago, and I went along to this lecture not really knowing what it was about, what was going to happen. And there was this lovely chap from Brazil who was speaking through an interpreter. And then these slides came on of the measurements of his brain pattern, the alpha waves, beta, theta waves, before he went into trance, during trance, after trance, and I'm just like, wow, this is something else. I like this.
And again, I think it's kind of, we were talking about trying to explain philosophy, and just from what you said there, it's also hard to explain when you're in that zone, or you're in that space where you're connected with spirit. It's difficult to put that into words. It's difficult to try and describe the intensity of the feeling. It's, I don't know. It's just it's difficult.
Yes. My experience and working with philosophy, although I'm working with a new guide and trying to work slightly differently because I want to keep growing. But going back to what I said was I'm sort of like semi there and semi not, which was lovely because when I'm not there, I'm not hindering what's coming through. But especially when I first started on the circuit, I was still working then full time before I retired at my very young age. But unfortunately, I used to work in a very big engineering firm, and you can imagine on the shop floor, it wasn't the Sunday afternoon language. And
I can imagine, yeah.
It was always my greatest fear because I'd be in that vein, that energy with the philosophy, and I would slightly drop out of it and become more conscious and aware. And my first thought was, what have I just said? Have I gone into work mode? Please don't let me have just gone into work mode. But you are, you're just slightly out of it.
Yeah, and I think because after, given philosophy, or most times after doing a reading, I cannot remember what I've said. I might remember wee bits, but if someone comes up to me and says, well, you gave me such and such, it's, did I? Okay. And it's not that I'm just, I just cannot recall. It's given, I give, and the mind just doesn't hang on to it. And yet it used to at the beginning, because of course we doubt ourselves, and the mind tries to say, is it me or is it them? Is it me or is it them? And the mind really plays fully within that. But as time goes on, you learn to trust and just go with what spirit are giving you. The mind kind of just wanders away.
Definitely. And I think it's very good evidence for mediums themselves, because if you sit there and use your mind to construct a sentence or something, you're going to hold on to it because your mind has put all that together. However, when you're working mediumistically, your mind isn't really involved. It may be taking the odd picture here and there, but it's not been involved in the construction of that sentence. And that's why it's not there.
And it is difficult, as you're saying, if someone was to come through, it's kind of the building site language, and you've got someone in spirit coming through and giving you that, and you're in that zone. It's kind of, I think that there's something that just kind of stops you from saying kind of the wee sweary words and things, or language that we use. It's always like there's a wee stop button that they have. But I do sometimes think, oh, what have I just said? Because of the person I've got through. And thankfully, I think I've only had one or two wee indiscretions where it's happened. Going back. But it's one of these things.
Definitely. But the history of philosophy and associations with spiritualism go back right to the very, very roots of spiritualism. As you quite rightly say, it was a communication, it's a healing, it's a philosophy, it's all one big package. And should always be given that way, because you just get these amazing, simple thoughts and ideas come through with a philosophy where you just think, you know what, I can really take that.
And in a way as well, it's the philosophy contains the message, inspiration. It contains healing as well, and it very often contains that message as well. You were talking about, how it just kind of answers a question.
Yeah.
And it often, you can just take that wee bit away, or something to think about.
Definitely.
But it's part. I mean, I always, as I said earlier, you know, it's always seen that philosophy and healing almost take that little bit of a second fiddle to the mediumship, where it's actually right up there. It's everything together,
Yeah,
and every part of it is important. And it's taken that message home. It's taken that little bit of inspiration, and as people say, it's coming along to the church or the centre, sitting there, sitting in that energy, that power, and taking away that, and feeling so much better at the end of the day.
indeed, 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 indeed. Now, we did have a little chat before we went on air,
Mm-hmm.
and you very graciously agreed to do this because I love experimenting.
Uh-huh.
So, everybody at home listening, we'll just take the first word basically that comes up. Nothing rude, thank you. But if somebody out there would just like to type in one word, and Ewan and myself will both work. Oh no, I'll tell you what. If you do one word, Ewan will work with that word, and then I'll take another word and just try and give a little bit of philosophy.
And
Link.
a nice simple word, because I don't have my dictionary here and I don't do big words.
Yes, please. So you've all heard that. Oh, there we go, Ewan. Lovely, Joan. Music.
Music.
Mm.
Okay, so do you want me to start?
Yes, please.
Okay. Do you know that the one great thing about music, and we talk about the music of spirit, and one of the things that many people talk about, of course, is that near-death experience. And we've heard so much about that, especially on programs recently and everything. I love reading about this, but you know, one of the things reported time and time again is the music from spirit, and how that music, they cannot describe it. Again, we've been talking about that, not able to describe things, but people talking about, they have no words to describe how beautiful the music is, nothing compared to the earthly music that we have. And that's something, you know, that that people, when they say that, you know, they've heard that, and that belief, and the whole near death experience, when they come back, and it changes their lives completely. That's one of the things that fascinates me. But also, and I need to mention this, because I remember, and again, it's a little bit of proof from spirit here. But I remember watching a medium. She was absolutely lovely, and she brought this gentleman through, and suddenly our hands were going like that, and everything, and all over the place, and she never even realised she was doing that, because of course we talk about being in that zone. And afterwards, the person said to her, you know, that was lovely. You brought, I think it was father or grandfather through, and said, you know, your hands were going everywhere. He was a conductor. He conducted music.
Wonderful.
And I just thought it was just a lovely story. It was that little bit of extra proof that they can bring through. But of course, the other thing about music as well, and I found this, was that after my mother passed, one of the songs we played at the funeral was "You'll Never Walk Alone." And for months afterwards, I could put on the TV, and there was a certain advert with that, and it would always come straight on as soon as I put the TV on or put the radio on. It was there. And of course, at times, you know, you can have a kind of wee laugh and think, oh, that's just a wee sign. Or suddenly the tears are going.
Yeah.
But the music, I just always think, is so important. And for me, it's just a way of that connection. It's just a way of, you know, it's too much of a coincidence for it to happen time and time again, putting the TV on, putting the radio on, or hearing about the song. But it was so frequent just all the time. But just adding just another thing, because I can always talk and talk and talk now. I find that, but just another wee funny story about music here was that I had an aunt, and after she passed, my mother and our cousin were arranging the funeral. And we have an old favourite that goes back in family, and it's the old rugged cross. And it's always played. And me being me, said the wrong thing and said, could we not change the music a bit? Just for once. And I got greeted with these looks of horror. I remember my mother saying, well, what do we change it to? And I said, well, what did she like? What singers did she like? And my mother mentioned a name of a singer. And I thought, well, there's no chance of finding anything of his. And then she said, there was always one song that she was always singing. And I thought, we've got it. What's the song? She said, she was always singing How Much Is That Doggy in the Window? But for a few moments, I thought I was weighing up the old rugged cross against How Much Is That Old Doggy in the Window? And that was winning, because that actually meant more to her, because music, of course, is such an important part. You know, that first dance that people have at their wedding that stays with them for the rest of their life, that song that they absolutely loved. And music, you know, music, like philosophies, been with us since the day we were here and will be for the millenniums to come. It's part of our life.
Wonderful, 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 wonderful. You said something there, and it just it's been said so many times before, but I've never had that thought. And again, inspired by the way that you're delivering it with the philosophy angle to it. When you said, "Whenever I turn on the TV, that music is there."
Mm-hmm.
How about looking at it from a slightly different angle of whenever I was prompted to turn on the TV,
Well, but yes,
that music was on
that's
there.
the thing. Yep, because you are kind of prompted. Why suddenly my turn? And it was an advert at the time. I can't even remember what it was for. But it was just always when I turned on the TV, it just started.
Yeah.
And as I say, there was times I would just smile and I would think, oh, okay. And other times, of course, the tears coming down, you know. It's which is part of, I guess, after we lose somebody and the memories we have of them. You know, we remember the good times and we have the sad times as well. We can't get away from the sadness. So we have the tears, we'll often have the laughter as well. But I love how Spirit and they give us these wee signs. Time and time again, they're there.
And that echoes all through spiritualism. It's like being given a bunch of keys, and all these various techniques and principles are a different key, and they just unlock that memory at that time, just to bring that person back to us, or that thought, or that energy. Got a question for you from lovely Jamie. Jamie's disagreeing. He says he thinks, like you, that philosophy is an important part of spiritualism. And he's asking, why do you think there seems to be an emphasis on courses about evidential mediumship? Do you think philosophy is not something that can be taught?
I think folk, they want to progress their mediumship, and mediumship is always at the forefront to them. It's about progressing that. And so there's so many courses on mediumship, and absolutely right, there's not a lot on philosophy. But again, very important. And what I do notice the SNU, because I've got a set for doing one of the training courses for them, is it's prompt cards, and it's like we've been using. There'll be a word. So given the word and giving that philosophy on it, and really tuning in just to Spirit and just seeing what comes forward. And I think that can be taught, and very much in the development circles as well.
Yes.
You know, we're talking about teaching mediumship in the development circles, philosophy as well. And I know in circles I've been in and circles that I've taken, we've had nights where we are not giving mediumship, we are not giving messages. This is about the philosophy from Spirit. This is about bringing that forward. And again, I do wonder if it's something that'll become more and more apparent because of the times that we're living in at the moment. I think things are changing.
Yes.
And I think as well as, the healing and the philosophy. So, I fully believe those that are mediums, who want to be mediums, you've got to learn the philosophy as well. You've got to be able to do the philosophy.
Indeed. The development circles I've been fortunate enough to sit in, all of them, you would work in all the different aspects each week. So, and again, similar to what you said with the SNU cards, we would have, I think they were called angel cards with just one word.
Yep.
And we had to stand up and talk for 5 minutes on that word. But it's this thing that grows, absolutely grows within you. Is that linking in and understanding. We get a little bit hung up sometimes on, I don't know which guide does this and I don't know which guide does that. It's quite a common energy coming back.
Yeah.
Carry on.
I don't fully know, everything about my guides. And of course, guides change. And I'll maybe get wee glimpses and bits about them, but do I really know them in depth? I have to say probably not. They're there, they're working with me, but I'm in that zone. So I don't know. I don't know kind of all about their lives. And sometimes they're a little bit of a mystery as well, but I trust that they're there. I know that they're there. But I probably don't get hung up on them or I just let them do their job.
Good.
I think they'd worry that I'd ask too many questions and they'd be fed up with me. So they're probably quite pleased that I just go with the flow.
I often joked, I said, I'll always know when it's my time to go home because all my guides have been reincarnating quickly, going, oh God, he's coming, quick, let's get back down there before he gets up here.
Always remember, funny enough, going back to first doing philosophy, and I was taught a valuable thing by one medium said, Ewan, when you're standing up giving philosophy, if after 10 minutes people are looking out the windows or looking at their watches, just sit down.
Very true. Very true.
And it's something I've never forgotten. So I have to say, if always have that wee look as well, just to make sure folk are with me still.
Yes, most definitely. So to keep up the bargain, I can't let you do it and me not.
Okay.
So, Marion Frisbee is talking about imagination. So on a philosophical side of that, quite interesting, because as this conversation has gone, it's prompting my philosophy guide here at the side, William, and he's having a ball listening to this. But he's talking about the word imagination here, and he's saying, but we're coming back now to this, what is imagination and what is mediumship? And it's bringing this down again to what is mediumship. We understand for the whole that mediumship is of the communication type, that you are able to bring through that presence, that energy, and that evidence of a loved one that we assumed lost to us, but able to communicate with us from spirit. But mediumship runs through everybody because everybody is spirit. That's an undeniable fact. We are all spirit, regardless of race, creed, colour, religion, wherever we are on this planet, we're all interlinked because we are all spirit. And spirit work with us. And imagination is one form of some forms of mediumship. It's that little prompt, it's that little idea, it's that little click moment when you think, you know what, if I do that this way, because spirit don't just work with us on the communication level. They want to be part of our everyday life with us here, helping us to grow, helping us to learn, helping us when we have the challenges, helping us when we realize maybe we need to sidestep and go a different path. And they're going to work on whatever level, whatever way, but it's all down to mediumship, not the communication type. Mediumship is communication of spirit. Now, if spirit communicate with you as in prompting you to turn on the music at that time and that song is there, if spirit prompts you that you sit there and use your imagination to be able to encompass your ideas and progress yourself, or spirit use that mediumship to bring back another, that moment, that touch. So mediumship is applicable to everybody, and not forgetting, never forgetting, the mediumship of healing, because healing is bringing through that power of spirit to bring around upliftment, respite, care, love, whatever that condition needs. That is through mediumship. So coming back to the original word of imagination, always ask yourself, just allow yourself that moment. Did I imagine that? Or was that given? And ask, because spirit always want to talk with us, converse. Spirit are there, we do tend to hold spirit a bit like a balloon on a string. They're here, now, with us, enjoying what we do, crying with us, laughing with us, and helping us. So, yes, thank you, Marion, for imagination.
Thank you. I love that. And on imagination. Yeah, no, I really. And again, it's kind of showing, the word that was given, and in Marion's case, there was that heart. Was it also prompted from spirit?
Indeed.
They have their ways of
they do.
getting through. It's a wonderful thing.
It is incredible, and thank you so much for agreeing to do that, because I did think that yesterday. I thought, "Ooh, I like that. I like to try things," because we are coming into this new way of working with spirit, and spirit working with us as well. I think this is the time now where we should be pushing the boundaries on what we know and what we understand, and not being frightened to. If it works, wonderful. If it doesn't work, okay, backtrack to where it was right and then restart again. Because this is the beautiful thing to me about spiritualism, that the philosophy is evolutionary. The philosophy of today is different to what it was yesterday and is not yet what it's going to be tomorrow.
And I think as well, also a little bit of inspiration in troubled times that they're trying to give as well. We know times are difficult at the moment. Times are awful for some. But within that, there's that little bit of hope, that little bit of inspiration. And in many ways, that's been given, and it's bringing that across as well, And I suppose very much it's like, all the stories of the war, and everybody coming together and looking for the good in everybody, and that inspiration and good times will come. They will come.
Indeed.
And I think spirit's helping with that in many ways, to give us this little bit to kind of hold on to, that there's better times ahead.
Indeed, and ever so needed now, not just with the physical loss that we're going through, but the divisionalism we're seeing. Everything is it's almost like a trap. Whenever you see these comments put out there, I just don't comment anymore on all these subjects, because it's like a trap. No matter what you say, whether it's about a mask or a vaccine or whatever you say, somebody is out there waiting to pounce and jump all over it. But that divisionalism is yet another part and parcel of our life today. And yes, all right, if you can pull back your energies from it a bit, great, and not fuel it. But with the philosophical side and with that inspirational side, you can not only just not make it part of you, but you can also put out that energy to diffuse that situation, to come back with an answer of, oh, Somebody's thrown something at you, waiting for the answer because they know what you're going to say. And when you come back with something gentle and loving, they go, "Oh, hold on, I can't have a go at that." Damn.
It's and I think over the years, and I've certainly felt this, but a lot of folk on their, when they find that spiritual journey and they find spiritualism and mediumship and everything, you do become a lot more sensitive about things. And especially now, I mean, I can find myself watching things and I've got to turn off over because I'm getting too upset. Now, don't get me wrong, I used to cry at Disney. So I'd be in tears at the end. And my two nieces would be, "Oh, what you crying at, Uncle? You're the damn." I'm a mess.
Yeah.
But I do find there's quite a lot, well, more than quite a lot, that affect me a lot more than they used to. And I certainly find that at this moment in time as well. And you can watch the news and I'm kind of off again. So, folk, and I've heard many people say that, sensitivity just kind of increases. And I think it's something we've just got to always remember. And I suppose, I was remember giving this a little bit of advice to someone the other week, and I think it applies to everybody, everybody, but also those of us that do go out there in the mediumship, everything, is that's just be kind to ourselves and be gentle with ourselves at the same time, especially in these times.
Indeed. And recognizing that sensitivity, like you, what's on the other day? Oh, Nanny McPhee in The Big Bang.
Yes.
I love that film. But it's that ending when she bows to the chair of the late mother. Woof, straight out there. But also that sensitivity, we need to be aware that it not only rebounds like that on our emotions, it rebounds like that on our whole psyche. I was in a habit of, in the morning, I would have the news on the TV while working on the computer. And I just found myself getting into this really turgid vibration. I'm just thinking, what is wrong with me? Because, that I know there's a lot going on, but I try to be positive and I'm finding it so hard. So I just turned off the TV in the morning. And do you know what? The next day, I had a beautiful day. Because your sensitivity is picking it up, and even not directly watching it because it's coming in audibly, your vibration is picking that up. So sensitivity is a beautiful thing, but like all things, you need to learn all its aspects.
Yeah, and just be kind to ourselves, be gentle, and I suppose work for the best. And spirit will protect us there as well.
Very true. Very true.
They will help. As I say, it's very much putting the trust in them, and just allowing them to do what they want. Because very often, folk will say about a medium, and that was a great message or whatever, and it's spirit that are bringing it. At the end of the day, we're just that kind of wee telephone or megaphone or speaker just bringing it through. And some days are clearer than others, but they're the ones that are really doing all the work.
Indeed. And going back to the philosophy vibration with that, I've had it. The odd occasion people have come up and said, "I love that. I thank you. That was wonderful." And it's like, it's not me. It isn't me. I can't even remember what I said. I used to say to people, "I wish somebody would tape me one day doing my philosophy so I could hear it again." Well, now in this day of where we're streaming it and recording it, you know what? I've not watched myself work.
I don't like watching myself back. I always think that's what fast forward buttons were for. I use these just.
It's the answer phone syndrome, isn't it? When you hear your voice on the answer phone, you think, "My goodness, that's not me."
Yeah, no, I refuse to watch myself.
Yeah, that's very true.
But we can also, I mean, that leads to an important point, because we get critical of ourselves as well.
Mm.
You know, that's another thing as well, as the sensitivity. We'll always come away from a place thinking, I wish I'd given that little bit more. I could have given that little bit more. There was some, so we're always critical at the same time. And I was about to throw in that joke there, there's never a happy medium.
Very true. Very true. Every time you get off, you think, yeah, mess that up.
Uh-huh. and that happens. But there was. I always remember. I might have said this before, but there was. I always learned a very valuable lesson, very very early on, and it was probably a very needed lesson actually. But I remember going to a church, and we're talking about, it was a night. Everything went great. All the messages, brilliant, all fine, everybody. I came away, I felt good. And there must have been something, I don't know whether the ego must have suddenly came in there, I know, for that week. And the following week I did another church, and it was awful. It was like drawing teeth. Nothing was coming through. I came away completely down. And I remember just sending this wee thought up and saying, what happened? And as clear as day, I just heard them shout back, you got too big for your boots, son.
Yep.
And that brought me right back down to earth with a thump.
Very true. Because again, on the philosophical side of spirit, it's not only for when we're doing the addresses or communications and that, it's our own personal philosophy. I know when I have crossed a line somewhere, and spirit just say it, and I go, and do you know what? If somebody had said it to me, I would have argued. But because it just came through like that, I went, yeah.
Oh yeah, this was as clear as day. There was no arguing with them. It was, and at first I thought, and then when I thought about it, I thought, oh no, they were absolutely right.
Yeah.
But it was, and we all talk about the lessons that we learn. We all have these stumbling blocks. Everybody on that route of and spiritualism, mediumship, healing, the philosophy will all have times where we think, oh, it just doesn't work tonight. What am I doing? And it's all part of the learning.
Definitely. And I've just evoked a lovely memory there. We were talking the other night on a similar vein, and we were talking about the early years when we first started off, doing the fledgling nights and things like that. And I had a pair of lucky socks. My mediumship wouldn't work if I didn't have my lucky socks on. And it took me a little. One night I didn't wear them without thinking, and it went wonderfully. And I went, oh, I don't need my lucky socks anymore. But it is this evolutionary growth. A couple of questions. Sorry.
No, I was just about to say, equally, I used to have my wee meditation, my set prayer. I had a set prayer, which was basically, I'll do anything. If you give me a message, I'll be good. I'll do this, I'll do that, I'll do everything. And time again. And then, now, I always talk about the medium's prayer, and someone says, what's the medium's prayer? Help. It's usually the medium's prayer now. But we start out and we have all these things, and again, I guess it's just putting the trust in them. It's just putting the trust in spirit at the end of the day. They'll do the work. They'll meet us halfway.
And again, when the trust grows on that philosophical energy, that's very inspirational for the prayers also. I've seen some people deliver absolutely resounding prayers where the energy is just so there. But on a humorous note, one of my old tutors used that prayer you said about I'll do anything.
Mhm.
You said it worked. She used to call that the white flag prayer, and she would tell you. We all had,
I'll, uh-huh.
we all
I
took
won't.
turns. Yeah,
I won't drink for a week. I'll be good. I'll open doors for everybody. I won't have road rage. Nothing. I'll be absolutely brilliant. Just give me something for my message. And then as we were saying, suddenly, the first words you hear from the chairperson, oh, you've got time for a second message. Second, no, 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 no. I do one message, don't do two. And it's all these wee stumbling blocks. But again, it's all put in place by Spirit. It's all part of
yeah.
learning. It's all, yeah.
Or you've just done a demonstration, and you can just feel that energy start to wind down, and the
Mhm.
chairperson says, "Oh, you got time for one more?" And you think,
Uh-huh.
"Oh, good." Well, actually, I've just done a really blistering one, and I want to go out on that note. I don't want to go. I'm not going to risk it.
But there are times as well between a message. I may tell on occasions tell a wee funny story or something like that, or another little bit of philosophy. And someone once asked, "Oh, that's really good, but why do you do it?" And I said, "It's simply because I've got nothing coming through at the moment, and that's why I've got to do that. And in the meantime, it's kind of help. And until they come through with something, there's not a lot you can do."
But then again, what you were doing is part
Uh-huh.
of your mediumship.
Yes. Uh-huh.
It's not confined to what people expect.
Mhm.
So, question time. Jamie back again. Jamie's philosophy is lovely, absolutely lovely. He took the service here last Sunday,
Mhm.
and I'll give you 10 out. No, I'll give you 9 out of 10, Jamie. So he's asking, who do you think has influenced your philosophy most of all?
I think it's probably family going back and the stories that have come down from family. If I'm being honest, because sometimes I will include these. Very often, I will include these, or equally friends where something has happened, and I find that a lot of my philosophy is maybe a kind of example of something that's happened, and Spirit are reminding me, Spirit are filling in all the other bits. But often it's something that people can relate to. So, for instance, and I think I can't remember what church has mentioned this to maybe a week or a couple of weeks ago, but and the reason I'm talking about family here is I was talking about in philosophy the proof of Spirit that comes through everybody else's eyes. It's not necessarily through mine, and it was where my mother had this glimpse into heaven before she passed. It's where my brother had this link with Spirit, and my mother after she passed. And I spoke about how very often we get that glimpse, we get that proof of Spirit through everybody else. So I think that's something that's filtered through. But I think I would have to say probably family going back and the stories and also talking, of course, influenced your philosophy most of all. I'd have to add Spirit itself.
Yeah, yeah,
At the
definitely,
end of the day.
definitely,
It
definitely.
was it was almost like I heard a wee voice from them actually to say him. I swear I can say that. It's hear that. So yes, definitely.
They were saying, if you don't say that, we'll make the dog bark again.
Yep.
Actually, that leads very nicely into the next question here from Marion. She's asking if you agree that often when you start speaking, it is more you than spirit, but spirit then tend to really
Yeah.
step in. Yeah.
So and 9 times out of 10, so you'll start. You may get a word, or it may be just something from the reading or something that was given to you earlier, and you'll start. And perhaps somewhere in the deepest recesses of the mind, you had an idea or form about how it was going to go. and suddenly spirit take over, and it's gone in a completely different direction. So when you kind of look at it later, if you can remember what you said, you realise, well, that didn't go quite the quite the way I thought it was going to go, but it just seems to come. It's almost as if it's not really you that's speaking. And as Marion said, yeah, you kind of start off and you can hear your words, so it's kind of your thoughts, and then quickly it's like, well, this is not me anymore.
Yeah. Well, why am I talking about this?
Exactly. And again, it's just going with the flow, I think, and just allowing them to bring those words through, and I suppose, very much, and I think I've not kind of said this yet tonight, but we're talking about how everybody gets something from philosophy, but we also get that little bit as well.
Very much.
We get that little bit, and it might be something, I've never thought about that, or very much, well, that answers a question I had. So we have that little bit that they're giving us.
Yeah, I always look at my. Sorry.
No, I was just about to say, because very often I think, and again, I think it's going back to being kind and being gentle to ourselves. And I know I'm guilty for this, and I'll put my hands up straight away for this. There's not often a time I will sit and just say and have that conversation with spirit, just like a one-to-one. It's not anybody else. It's not about readings, it's like, well, what do you want from me? What can I do? What can we? And I'm guilty of doing that.
Yeah.
But I think that would be a great thing to do as well. And yet we have that in the circles as well, because very often we will have a time where you'll meet your guys and just have that experience of being able to ask them questions, and they can let you know and ask you questions and have that kind of conversation.
Yeah. And again, very nicely tailors in. Jan Poole, she's asking, do you or myself practice philosophy when you're sitting on your own? Interesting. I know my thought, your thought.
Sometimes I'll read something, and for instance, where I said to you, and that leads nicely again, what's this a wee prompt from Spirit here? When I spoke to you, I said I'd actually looked out a poem, because it was a poem that's very much on my mind today. And just before I came on, I just Googled for the poem again to print it off. And so, yeah, when I'm sitting there, I may read something, and it'll lead me into, oh, that'd be something great to talk about. And maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't. And again, was it prompted by Spirit?
Yeah.
Why did this suddenly come in front of me? It's something I wouldn't normally read.
Yeah, no, I get that fully. Really good question, Jan. Thank you. My energy, my guides, I'm going to blame them, so don't shout at me. We use this word practice. We practice our mediumship. We practice philosophy. We don't practice, we do it. What we do is we do a constant refinement. But to me, the word practice invokes something like, I'm going to try shortcrust pastry today. Well, that didn't work. We'll put that in the bin. When we work with spirit, we're not practicing. We're doing it. But what level and what depth is where it starts to really engender us as mediums. So with that question there, Jan, I practice my philosophy by sitting and talking with my guides. And not every time they answer, but a lot of the time they do, because I'll think something and the response is there straight away. And that's building that link between the two of us, helping us both to understand each other, which then comes out within the philosophy side, because we're more meshed, we're more synchronized. So it allows that philosophy and everything to come through. So nice one. Would you like to do your poem?
I would, and as I say, this was something that it kept coming to me over the last couple of days, and again, it's not as a poem I've used, but until the last couple of days, I wasn't thinking about it. I just assuming it was prompted by spirit, this poem, and again back on my mind very much today. So I'm hoping for folk that are watching or watching later on that they will take something from this. And this is a lovely poem I find, and it's called The Ship. And this is it. What is dying? I am standing on the seashore. A ship sails in the morning breeze and starts for the ocean. She is an object of beauty, and I stand watching her till at last she fades on the horizon, and someone at my side says, "She is gone." Gone? Where? Gone from my sight, that is all. She is just as large in the mast, hull, and spars as she was when I saw her, and just as able to bear her load of living freight to its destination. The diminished size and total loss of sight is in me, not in her. And just at the moment when someone at my side says she is gone, there are others who are watching her coming, and other voices take up a glad shout. There she comes, and that is dying.
Brilliant.
And that's by Bishop Brent. And I often think, if there's one poem that perhaps sums up that dying phase, it just reassures us that there are others helping that person cross over, and they're there for them. In a way, I always talk about going home.
Indeed. Yeah, indeed. That is beautiful. Strangely enough, spookily enough, that exact poem was used. We had Jack Eckhart and Lola from Denmark take one of the Zoom morning services.
Okay.
And Lola used that poem as her reading, and then Jack gave his address upon it, and it was absolutely beautiful. Absolutely. But yeah, firm favourite of mine.
I think it's such a lovely poem, and I've used that a lot in the past. As I say, just on my mind, or saying on my mind, how it came on my mind, but probably spirit. So in some way, it's spirit's way of touching a few folk tonight, or watching this, and again, just trying to get that little bit of a message through.
Definitely. And lovely Tony there. She read that at her uncle's funeral. So there we go. And it's amazing, just that poem, and it's evoking so many memories and thoughts and feelings in people. And that is philosophy, because it's a message for everybody. It's not a message for one.
And the way of spirit getting things through, because Tony's just said that. Well, Tony's come along tonight. Okay, I've been prompted by spirit over the last couple of days, who have kept putting into mind this poem, which I never thought of for months before. And again, Jennifer here as well. And it's spirit's way. It was like I was talking about, I kept putting on the TV, or prompted to put on the TV, and there was that song. There's that little sign. And already we've got two people on. So it's, for me, and I get Marion here as well, again, it's spirit's way of just bringing that wee message across.
Indeed.
There's that connection.
Indeed.
And again, I think, or hopefully we just proved the point that, that connection and that message has come through in that poem or philosophy, and it wasn't through a message, but there's that little bit of proof.
Exactly right. Absolutely. Ewan, I could talk to you all night. I love your cultured accent.
I don't know about cultured, but
The Scottish side of my family come from Glasgow, and it's a little bit harsher.
It's only 40 miles to the west. In fact, I'll tell you just very quickly a funny story here. But before the days of sat nav, and I was doing a church in Glasgow, and I got lost on the way back. So I stopped and wound down the window, and this was this big guy, big Glaswegian here, and I kind of said, "I'm a little lost." He said, "Where are you trying to find?" I said, "Edinburgh." He said, "Follow that road right round, and unfortunately, you can't miss it." You'll find that there's a bit of a rivalry between Edinburgh and Glasgow. But it was the way he said that, you want to go to Edinburgh?
Very quickly, Marion Frisbee here. Just saying, how do you feel about philosophy read or spirit inspired and spoken? Do you feel it generally has a different vibration?
Yeah, I think spirit, you're just again back in that zone, and you'll probably not really remember what you've said afterwards. So remember bits, wee bits, but it's difficult. It's really difficult to describe in words that connection and that feeling. It's just you've come together. It's like what I was talking about at one stage about my mother saw that glimpse of heaven. I was watching her looking at the corner of the room, but not only was she looking at the corner, she was looking past the corner. And I cannot put that into words. I cannot find the words. There are no words for that what happened and how it felt and what I saw. And I think it's a bit like that. It's so difficult to describe that connection. You just feel, I don't know, you've come together.
Yeah. Well, I fully get that. And actually, if you recall our conversation before we went live, I had the great privilege of taking a funeral service today for a very dear gentleman. Sadly, at this time, we're denied that getting together to build and create that service. So I was reading different memories from different people. And although the service went very well and everybody was very happy, for me, it just felt that little bit disjointed because it didn't have that flow of creation. And that's probably very good and applicable to what Marion's saying here, that when you're in that flow with spirit, something being created as you're talking about. I always look at my philosophy as a big adventure because I never know where it's going to go. So I just think, oh, great, this is like a mystery trip. Okay, come on.
Yeah.
What's going to happen?
Exactly, and I think as well when it's spirit led and spirit given, that's when it really does touch people.
Yeah,
because I think they know the folk that is kind of to touch. And again, I get back to that poem. I mean, unless it had been kind of prompted and was kept being given and was on my mind for the last couple of days, I would have not looked out this poem tonight. I just wouldn't have. But for some reason, it was meant to be, and Spirit wanted to bring that across.
We've had 3 people conversant with that poem and absolutely loved it. And we've got a very nice gentleman here, Kevin Watson, who's never heard that. But he, bless him, lost his mum a few months ago, and it just given him something interesting to hold on to.
And hopefully it's Spirit just giving again that wee message to say, when it's our time to go over, we are taken care of, and they're there. We don't cross over alone.
Very much so. And people talk about evidential mediumship. Sorry, folks, tonight has been evidential mediumship, not in the way of bringing through a person, but the way this has fallen together. The messages coming through. Oh, got a question. Oh, Mr. Abbott, Mr. Tim Abbott on. Good evening, Tim. How are you, sir? I've not read this yet.
I was driving to a car one day. I had a voice. Yes.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Tim. Realising
And I
we're in the
think, yeah, and that faith, I think we have, and that, do you know, I think over the years I found that faith in spiritualism has just grown and grown and grown. And I can't imagine myself ever coming off that road because I've got that faith.
Yeah.
I think it'll always be there. Interesting. It's slightly different, but talking about being in the car and suddenly hearing something, I had a kind of different experience. And there's a very busy road in Edinburgh, and I was in the car. Funny enough, I was going up to, I think, Dundee for a weekend to do a church. So everything was in the car going up, and we've got a road called the Queensferry Road, and I came to a stop. And I don't normally bring the handbrake up in the car. I'm one of these folk that just sit on the brake. And so, you know, and I heard this voice as clear as day. And I don't know whose voice it was, just said, "Bring the handbrake up now." And I did. And suddenly this van just slammed in the back of the car. And had I not brought the handbrake up, I would have then been into the car in front.
Yeah.
And again, spirit just had this way. And I mean, I ended up in hospital, broke sternum and things like that. Now, it does it really good to when, you know, you were supposed to go up to do a service, you know, and said, he never saw that coming, did he?
That good.
You know, he can't. No, we're not having him again. You know, he never saw that coming. But you know, it was, and I guess from Tim's point, it comes back to there was that faith and spirit. I just did it immediately. Maybe I had such a faith and spirit as soon as I heard that handbrake came up, and thank God I did. Yeah, I think faith is very important. I think it's good that we can all have a faith in something.
Very true. My experience on that energy, I used to love, when I lived in London, I used to love coming down here and getting back out into the countryside. And I used to go on the walks over the range of hills here, the Purbeck, near the cliffs there. And I was walking one Sunday afternoon. Weather wasn't brilliant, so it was really, really quiet, which was even better. And I was walking along this path, and the path divided. And as I was coming up to the junction, I looked at like what would have been my left-hand side. And I thought, I'll go along that way. And a voice, clear as day, but so gentle, but so commanding, it's really hard to describe, said, if you go that way, you will die. And I thought, oh, okay, I'm not going to go that way. I'll go the other way. And I'd literally taken about 20 steps. And then I suddenly went, what? Where has that come? Oh, okay, that's fine. Yeah, I'm trusting that. A couple of months later, I was walking that way again. And I thought, what is down this other route? And I went down there and the path just disappeared. There'd been a big rock slide a couple of months.
Right.
And I thought, okay, thank you very much. But it was that energy. It was amazing. It had the impact of somebody sort of like telling you, do not do that, but with a gentle tone. I can't quite get it into Queen's English.
And the thing is, going back, I was always the sort of person, if someone told me I shouldn't do something, it would be, well, why shouldn't I do something?
Yeah. Why?
Oh, no way, I'm doing this. But again, as we're talking about that faith and that trust and spirit, when it comes from them, you kind of listen.
True. Ewan, absolutely beautiful night. Thank you again. I'm always thanking you. Wonderful people give up your time and your knowledge.
It's been a pleasure.
But brilliant evening. Thank you. Thank you all for joining tonight. I hope you've enjoyed it. Next week's Lyceum night, we have the wonderful Yvonne Nielsen from Denmark. Will be taking our evening next week, 7 o'clock, live on this channel. Thank you. Thank you all for being here. Thank you again, Ewan. Thank you, Doggy, for being quiet.
He's away asleep now. He realised I wasn't paying him any attention, so he's
Yeah.
he's gone off.
No attention equals no food equals not
Yeah.
bothered.
No biscuits. No.
Thank you all. Lovely comments coming in. Thank you all. Please take care. Look after yourselves. Remember, if you come in halfway through, you will be able to watch this again on our YouTube channel on Catch Up. So good night, everybody, and God bless.
Right.